Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Schwenk. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very, very well. This is a loosey-goosey episode, Walt. We're here on Awesome Truth, and we are not talking about nothing. Well, we're not talking about a book. We're not talking about a documentary. We're not talking about a show. We're not talking about a YouTube series. We're talking about WrestleMania. We are just going to freewheel it. I'm opening a leftover Guinness right now from the St. Patrick's season. And Walt, we're here to just literally, I guess we're going to start by talking about WrestleMania 38, but because this is Awesome Truth, because we like history, we like context, we like backgrounds, we're going to talk about WrestleMania in general, what it means, how it's been sort of built up, the mythic status it now occupies, and whether that status is actually justified.
I think just when we go and kind of revisit some old WrestleMania classics, and I use the word classics loosely, you'll realize that our level of preparation for this episode might reflect just how poorly some of these WrestleManias are in many ways, because it could potentially be that bad, but hopefully there's enough to talk about with just our collective knowledge of 40 years of WrestleManias almost, and the almost 40 years we've both been alive, where we can, improvise.
I think we'll be able to. We've seen a lot of WrestleManias. We've been to a couple, and we've read countless tomes and watched countless shows that talk about the importance, why this event matters. And it does matter, obviously, in a broad sense. If you talk to a random wrestling fan, if you talk to a lapsed wrestling fan, an older fan, my father, for example, who turned me on to wrestling, wouldn't be caught dead watching Monday Night Raw, will probably pop on WrestleMania pending having Peacock. I think he'll know what WrestleMania is, and he'll certainly consider watching it, which is not something he could say for probably any other wrestling event that happens anymore in the year 2022. But he cares about WrestleMania. But when you look at this card of the upcoming WrestleMania 38, when you look at previous WrestleManias, it's just amazing that this became such an iconic show. Because it's certainly, there are WrestleMania moments, there are some of the best matches, and the really good ones, I would say, get elevated in importance because they're at WrestleMania. That does matter a lot of the time. But there are cards that are just littered with crappy matches, spectacles, dumb shit, celebrities, wastes of time. It is far more likely you're going to look up an old WrestleMania and find a bunch of bad matches as opposed to a bunch of good ones.
You hit upon something that I do want to also harp on here. It's like the celebrity aspect of a WrestleMania can really make or break how I look back on that WrestleMania. Because, Johnny Knoxville in 2022, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. And I think, in 10 years, I'm going to look back. Hopefully we're doing the show in 10 years and we talk about WrestleMania again, for lack of
on the eve of WrestleMania 48. We're gonna do another show,
sure, to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of this conversation. But I probably will look at Johnny Knoxville's name on this Wikipedia page of the event the same way that I saw Snooki.
That's mean. You really think you're gonna? That's your thoughts on the Knoxville match? You hate Knoxville more than McAfee?
I think I like McAfee.
I guess.
But McAfee isn't a celebrity though.
I know, and he's had matches and proven his bona fides to a certain extent. He's obviously cares about being somewhat of a wrestler.
No, but I think though that not only was WrestleMania 27 bad. But I look back, it's well, maybe we got some interesting celebrity interaction. Oh, nope, we didn't get that either. Snooki did a cartwheel, and the match, it wasn't even long enough for me to go take a shit. Not that I would have done that in the Georgia Dome, but that's besides the point.
Well, yeah, 'cause you were there for that, so you had to see Snooki in person.
We'll get it. We might get more deeper into that later.
People like that cartwheel, though. That cartwheel gets rave reviews to this day. Not even joking. I really think people do like it.
Name one person who.
I see people on the internet talk about that cartwheel with wow, Snooki did a pretty athletic, cartwheel back elbow thing.
Yeah, but that was the first of her 10 to 20 different spin-off iterations that she did after Drew. Point being is I think that ages poorly because of just that just was so time and a place.
It does
And
pin it to a certain era for sure.
yeah, but like I'm trying to think of a good celebrity in recent years. Like I don't know, I feel like potentially we're gonna see we'll look back on like last year's Bad Bunny performance and be like, okay, that was a really big moment for the company. Get like securing this guy for this thing because he's a really big name in the music industry, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Yeah, but then he came back at the Rumble and just did nothing, and then was eliminated, and is not at Mania anymore. So that sort of took the bloom off that rose, you know.
Fair.
But it is. But you're right that it is WrestleMania, and this is, the when you look back, you don't think about Rumbles or participants in that the same way you think about a guest appearance at a Mania. I mean, Johnny Knoxville is I think that's going to be interesting. He certainly takes bumps well in terms of getting hurt. Like I hope he's
Right.
being trained to get hurt in a wrestling match. I don't know if Sami Zayn is the opponent I would want. I'd love to see like John Moxley versus Johnny Knoxville. If in a world where they could match up, because so John Moxley could beat the shit out of him with things, like that seems like Sammy like is a good wrestler. So, but I don't know. Like this year is a very weird card. Like we should talk about the two nights now. They've given in to the reality of the situation. Certainly, even more relevant after watching AEW Revolution, an A show that just went on for too goddamn long. Too many good matches. Even they've broken Mania up into two nights. For better or worse, if you want to watch this show, you got to put 3 hours and 3.5 hours in, and then the exact same thing the next night. And it's a big ask, but at the very least, you do get to take a break, get a reprieve, go to bed. The downside for sure is you look at these cards right now to the two nights, neither one particularly stands out as entirely worth watching in full.
Well, do you think that when they first announced the two nights, and I think we should also have a separate conversation about just two night WrestleManias in general, but like specifically with this year's two night event, do you think they had the foresight when they announced, hey, we're going to try and sell this place out two straight nights, that they were going to cut more than half the roster between announcing that last year and actually having the goddamn event? I don't see a battle royal on this card. And you know what you did as a company is you cut 30 wrestlers, male and female, that could have filled out that. And I'm not saying that like, oh no, they can't have WrestleMania because Keith Lee was cut. But you know who would have filled in one of these spots a lot better than Happy Corbin is probably Keith Lee.
Yeah. Drew McIntyre versus Keith Lee is a match where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to sit down and watch night one because I want to see these two beefy boys go toe to toe, That would be intriguing to me. That would have the more hardcore appeal of the more committed fan, while some people might show up to watch Logan Paul. I don't know who those people are, but someone out there presumably is going to turn it on for Logan Paul.
But ultimately, though, like I wonder if like I know attendance is not great, and that could be for many reasons. But like ultimately, it's like, yeah, you don't have the roster anymore to support two nights of wrestling.
Yeah, it is a weird downside to the cuts, which we all, not saying there isn't many downsides, including people losing their jobs, but it is you don't the people you're looking at that are on the cart are like the show. Like there's not a ton of other people that are around to do things, which is weird in the sense that it's kind of nice that there's not a lot of loose fat on the show anymore. Like it's certainly a much tighter roster, but are these people just gonna face each other in perpetuity, switching dance parsers? Is that the next year of WWE? Like probably, because I don't know who else is even around.
They already are doing that.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like right.
Probably. I mean, I don't watch a ton, but that is the gist I get. Yeah.
Which one of these matches? And this isn't me just trying to shit on the product because like I think there were like I had the same feelings going into last year's WrestleMania, and like there were some real bangers where I'm like, okay, that was great. I'm glad that they spent significant TV time building this matchup because it delivered. Like the double pin and the stacking was like, to me, was like S-class booking. I'm like, yes, this is excellent. This is exactly how Roman Reigns should have gone out with these two. Like this was excellent. And so, but obviously it's hindsight speaking, like, but I'm just curious to get your take as to like, which one of these are you legitimately excited to see?
looking at this card, for the first time probably in a few weeks, like, and mostly fleshed out. Like, we're recording this a little bit in advance, but really not much. There's not a ton on here that I really like. There's not a ton that I want to sit down and watch. Like, I just don't. There's certainly the whole point of WrestleMania to me is everything is, it culminates. Maybe not a year's worth of feuds, but you'd like to say at least January to March. Like, you'd like to see things start at Royal Rumble or around then, and then finish up at the end of March. I I know this sort of is the case. Like, I know Ronda came back. Becky and Bianca have been doing it for a while. Like, Drew Mack and Happy Corbin, I believe, have been fighting for years at this point. Like, I feel like they have been permanently having wrestling matches with each other. But I just don't really know what the blow-offs here. Edge and AJ Styles, I think, just got in a program like 3 weeks ago. I just don't see a ton here that feels. I feel good as a non-every week watcher that I can just pop this on and I guess appreciate it for what it is, and hopefully there'll be some good matches. But good matches are not really what WrestleMania is about. Like, there should be one or two bangers, in terms of a wrestling talent, but they're about story too. Like, we don't love Taker versus Shawn because it was a spot fest or because they were flipping around doing, wild stuff. Like, there was story, there was build up. Like, there were two important characters that mattered to us for decades, and they were going toe to toe. That's why it was important. There's on this pay-per-view. Not that every Mania needs to have that, but on this card right now, I'm just like, what is even close to that? Like, what is unique or important, and I don't really see a ton of either.
Well, so I kind of have the opposite approach here in a sense that, like, I agree with, like, I'm not disagreeing with that notion you just had, but, like, if you remember, Michaels Taker 1 there wasn't much story to that. It just was a spontaneous. It almost was spontaneous in many ways because it became a classic, despite, like, oh, we're just going to pair these guys together. It should be a great match. And it's like, oh, man, that was like, you look back on that, it's like, oh, actually, that was amazing. And the story was like, Shawn Michaels likes God, so he's light. And then, like, Taker is from hell, so he's dark. It's like, that was, like, really the lead up.
But you know as well as I do that, like, when you have decades of character development, like, that does alleviate some of the need for a reason to fight,
No, but
two guys who'd also circled each other weirdly for such a long time and hadn't had a ton of matches.
No, but it's not like, oh, wow, remember when Taker and Michaels were in the first Hell in a Cell? And that, like, I don't think any of that was really part of the build at all. It wasn't like their collective history. It was just like, hey, these two are going to have a match. Mm-hmm. So, like, and it's going to be great. So, get on board. But, and the reason I bring that up is, like, Edge and AJ has the potential to be a match that we remember fondly in retrospect, and we're just going to, like, it won't even matter why they're wrestling. And the reason for that is for several reasons, but, like, I think the biggest reason is, like, they have the capacity to, like, overperform and create magic from a somewhat meaningless match, but also, like, these two have never faced each other. Mm-hmm. And so just for that reason alone, like, as a fan, and if they were smart with the build, they would have really flexed on this. But, like, that's just historic. And because of that in the same ways that Michaels and Taker were historic, like, we might just in a vacuum get an amazing match that recontextualizes itself as important after the fact.
Yeah, and that I agree with what you're saying, and I do think that is the quote-unquote magic of WrestleMania, or the stage that WrestleMania allots you. If you come up with something special, if you do something cool, if you stand out amongst the crowd, if you wow someone with something I've never seen before, it does make it that much easier to get it to this legendary sort of place, whether that is justified or not. And I think what we're going to talk about pretty soon is that a lot of the cards and the history are bullshit and should not be, have not really maybe earned this show that sort of status amongst anybody. But one of the things we bring up on this show so constantly is WWE masterful at writing its own narrative, at crafting its own history, at reshaping events to suit its needs. buying up your competition for decades does that, like it does give you the chance to set the terms and be in charge. And but it's just wild to me. And looking at and when we were sat down to say what are we going to do with WrestleMania, like we don't want to go through the match by match. We don't want to talk about the entire card. We want to talk about the concept of WrestleMania. And it's just insane when you look back. Sometimes you have to scroll through Wikipedia, year by year, and it's like, surely I'm going to get to a good show soon. I'm going to get to one of these shows that justifies this show's place in history, and it's sometimes it's very hard to do so.
But I will say before we go down memory lane, I mean, like you look at this card here and you look at these matches and it's like there's certain ones where like, oh, that could be really good, and or whether or not they did the work to get there. But I think the one thing I do have to point out is the fact that like I'm gonna look at this Brock versus Roman like match that has been.
What could they do there that could be different?
I mean, like, unlike the Edge AJ match where it's like, oh, this is intriguing because it's like I've never seen it. It's like, yeah, I don't know what they can do here, but like I don't know if that's exciting or not. Like, yeah, sure, they're gonna put on a big Haas throwing haymakers match, and that's all. It's all well and good, but I saw this 10 years ago. I feel like,
and then 8 years ago, and 6 years ago,
right.
And many a time. It's weird that feud is emblematic of, I think, a lot of people's problems right now with the rosters, with everything. They are their two biggest stars. It's pretty hard to argue with that. Like, they certainly should probably be fighting at the biggest show. But as much as I enjoy Brock as a historical figure and occasional appearances are wonderful, some of them are a little more muted. And then as much as this Roman heel turn seems to be impressive, I just don't really see what the big payoff is, Like, what are you excited for? Do you think they're going to pull something out of their butts, or do you think it's just going to be, as you described it, like a hoss on hoss kind of deal?
I mean, maybe that is intriguing because I really don't know who they even go with here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could make the argument for both wrestlers, but like,
does it even matter though? Like, I feel like it's one of those ones where the winner is superfluous, Like I'm curious who's going to win, but I could Wikipedia that after the show. Like I wish there was some hook to it that was unexpected. Not just unifying the belts. Like, who cares about unifying the belts? Like, why even unify the belts? You have two different shows.
I think there's a way to look at WrestleMania in twofold, where it's like you look at the historical landscape of it. Because like I think like there's all these rumors that The Rock may one day come back and dethrone Roman, and if this is the precursor to that, a year like kind of like what they're setting up with like Ronda and Becky, I think that's like the bigger picture plan is like next year they now face in 101 when they did the triple threat. But like in this one, it's going to be hard to view in a vacuum just because like it's clear that they have this bigger picture plan with Roman, the same way they did with like Cena Rock way back when. It's hard to judge it until you see the whole picture. If we're going that way, I don't even fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly one of the, I don't want to say problems, because it's sometimes it's great. And if Rock does come out at the end of this show when Roman beats Brock and points at his cousin and gives him the look or whatever, like that's, people are going to go nuts, and that will sell 1 million tickets, and they're a business, and it will, business-wise, that probably is the smart way to go. But it is just weird every time you feel like one of these shows is a transitional Mania, when you feel like, well, nothing is going to pay off here in the way I'd like to see it pay off, like where Hangman beats Omega, and you feel like close the book on one chapter, open the book on another one. If that happens, and I sort of get the vibe that's what's going to happen, it would feel like the chapter continues.
I feel like you and I have a lot to say about transitional manias because that just what you just said reminded me of watching the Miz Cena live at WrestleMania 27.
Yes, let's talk about that. You were at We've been to a couple Manias together. That was one that I did not attend, which I think was a good decision, especially for that main event, which was odd and overshadowed immediately and barely needed to be a match.
The whole point of it was to give Cena and The Rock a reason to wrestle at the following WrestleMania. It's like, you didn't need to give me that strong of a reason to watch that match. That was insanely important from the history of wrestling.
Was that a
And
count out ending?
well, it was oh boy, it was a count out as we reviewed in our Miz 24/7.
Sure.
It was a count out at first, and then The Rock came and restarted the match, but then he attacked Cena, giving the Miz the win.
Wow.
So talk about transitional WrestleManias.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I know you were supposed to talk about the shit manias, and I was supposed to talk about the good ones, but for some reason I'm always compelled to talk about the shit things.
You have expert analysis, hands on from being there. So please, you have to. If anyone should talk about that, it should be you.
I mean, I'll just give you just the cliff notes of this WrestleMania. This was the Snooki WrestleMania with the cool cartwheel. This was H Taker 1. Which was not very memorable, not in a Hell in a Cell, and with not Shawn Michaels. This was Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler.
Wow.
This was a 13-minute match.
Is that was 13 minutes long?
Yeah.
Does Lawler just beat him up the whole time?
Yeah, but Cole
I've
got
never
the win
seen that match
because of shenanigans. I can't remember.
Is that where Cole's wearing the Rick Steiner headgear and the tights?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
yeah. I've seen that picture before.
This was also on the kickoff show. They had Sheamus, Daniel Bryan for the U.S. title that ended up becoming a schmaz finish because it was an impromptu lumberjack match that then they just turned into a battle royal. And then neither one of those guys won the battle royal.
I think I vaguely remember that.
So
that sounds. Was there anything good? Did you walk away then or now? Did you find anything enjoyable?
I'm sure Orton and CM Punk did a fun spot with the RKO. I believe that was when Punk jumps off the ropes, does the clothesline and into an RKO.
Okay.
I remember Rhodes Mysterio being good, I guess. And then Edge Del Rio was like the opener. And that was, I guess, like a WrestleMania match.
So,
I don't know.
None of those certainly sound, memorable or like they stood the test of time or are being revisited by fans to this day.
No, it's not. The core was on this.
Oh, there you go. You love the core, right?
Why would I like the core?
Was Mason Ryan in the core?
No, he was in the new.
He's in the new Nexus, of course. Was David Otunga in the core?
No.
Wow.
He was in the new Nexus.
Wow. Okay,
Can you name one member of the core?
Apparently not. I'm not even going to try anymore because I'm so embarrassed by my lack of the core with the core.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, that just reinforces what we were saying, though, is like, that's horrible. And it served the purpose, and I'm sure there are people out there who found H Taker good or were so excited by Rock Cena that they, upcoming that they didn't mind seeing such a stupid main event. But to me, that just sounds like a waste of time, a waste of money, and just not, in the spirit of WrestleMania. Like, I just don't. I know that's not how Vince McMahon does business all the time, and I know that every year can't be that, but it just feels like something, to mention AEW just once on this episode, it feels like something they're never going to do to us, or try really hard not to do to us, is give us a show that just truly feels, especially a big show like that feels so replaceable and, like, certainly better than an episode of Raw, but really not that much different in terms of what it does to characters, story, end games, resolution. At that point, it really doesn't feel like it's that much of a leap.
I believe this is the second time you brought up AEW.
Oh, well, sorry. They make a fine product.
The first and not only time. But I mean, you look back on that, and I paid money to go sit in a crowd of thousands of people to go watch that dog shit. So.
And you were probably excited, too, on the way, right? Or maybe not. Maybe you were old enough or wise enough to look at the card and go, ugh.
Yeah, maybe it was just like an excuse to go to Georgia. I don't know.
Well, we also went to a Mania together. We went to Mania 29, and that was a show. I would say it's a little better than other Manias, but it definitely it to me that feels like a period of Mania. Not too far off from what you just described. But if you look at this Mania 29 card, there's a couple matches on here that were good-ish, or that they tried to make them important. They tried to have some finality at least. Undertaker CM Punk is very well regarded. The last Cena Rock, I don't think it was good. I think Rock was hurt and got blown up in about 5 seconds. But
wasn't the first one?
But did Rock get blown up in the first one?
I can't remember. That's a good question.
I think he got hurt in this one though, didn't he?
Oh, maybe he did tear his oblique.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
I can't remember, honestly. Wow.
I remember, yeah, we were a little tipsy at that point too. That was after 4 hours, but I mean, that at least was like, I recall that being a match with a ending, So I was like, okay, like the torch has been officially passed, Cena wins, or this one, hooray, like, I guess it's 1-1 technically still, but there was also like Fandango Jericho, there was a Mark Henry Ryback match, which was not two big hosses having a good time, like, the Shield fought a crap 6-man tag, like, it's just amazing to click back through all these, and we spent money. We had a good, we went to the show. We had a decent time, but it still doesn't. I look back and I wonder where's the allure? Like how much of the allure is manufactured and how much of it is legitimate.
Yeah, I'm looking at this card, and there's two things I remember vividly from all this.
It was really cold that day too. Remember that?
That was the first thing I was going to bring up. Is I did not prepare for the cold. It was like an outdoor Mania. Let's go. 50 degrees. Starts raining. I was traveling out of town, and so I had a bunch of wrestling T-shirts, and I ended up having to wear all of that. I didn't bring like a long sleeve anything except for my jacket, and I was like freezing. That was miserable.
Yes.
And I'm like, I vowed, and then so the next time it came to New York area, I'm like, under no circumstance am I going to see an outdoor WrestleMania not in Florida.
Yep.
Ever.
Smart.
Second thing that really sticks out to me is Dolph Ziggler's on this card. Dolph Ziggler has the Money in the Bank. Did not cash in for this crowd and cashed in the next day in Newark.
Yes, that's right. Got a big pop, though, I remember. Very exciting.
It's one of the most memorable cash-ins ever.
That was when Ziggler was so over, too.
Yeah.
Like, I bet people were chanting his name the whole match he had with Big E. Also crazy that Big E was on the show 9 years ago. He's been around for so long now. Get well soon, Big E, friend of the show. We hope you're doing all right.
I remember my brothers trolled me that rest of that year. He's like, yeah, you went to WrestleMania and Dolph Ziggler catches in the next night. I'm like, yeah, that kind of sums up the evening for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's what it is. Everybody sort of had their match. Like, it definitely is not another one that, I would say this probably falls more in the middling category. But it's not anything you'd look back on and with delight. I don't think we regretted spending the money, but I don't think we were buying commemorative T-shirts and thinking about how daydreaming the next week about what a great time it was.
That, I think, middling is like
a nice thing to say.
A curse. Yeah, it's such a curse. It's like, God, either could you be like WrestleMania 9 bad if I'm gonna go to one of these things? Yeah. So I can just like completely hate it. Like, yeah, like middle of the road is because there's so many of those. I feel like.
Yep.
In the slight defense of this year's, it's like, well, I mean, like the bar is like the median is kind of just like, eh. So if you just see that with a few bangers, you're good.
But there have been good manias though. Like we're not crazy, right? There's ones out there that truly lived up to the moniker and everything around it.
Well, I mean, which ones stick out in your mind?
I mean, I remember we watched WrestleMania 30 together, and I don't have the card up right now. I was looking up the bad ones, but that was a good show, though, right? That's not just memory of Brian's. That obviously a played out angle like that certainly goes a long way. But I think that was a pretty good top to bottom kind of show, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick highlight: the Cesaro winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal by throwing Big Show over, which
we all thought was like, well, they finally are pulling the trigger. He's finally going to be a guy, and now he wasn't.
Yeah. Shield just wrecking New Age Outlaws and Kane.
I swear before that match, you and I and our friend of the show, Chris Holcomb, we were saying this is better. Like these guys are such fucking jobbers. Like they need to just smash these guys. And then they came out and had a 5-minute, not even a 5-minute match. I've had a 3-minute match and just did their finishers and crushed them. And like that is that is such a treat and such a big moment for the Shield. And like I look back on that as one of the smartest, like very small decisions they made. You know.
And of course, this is Lesnar Taker, so
yes,
which was very
was,
memorable.
Yeah, memorable for the ending at least. Yeah, so
sure, yeah,
yeah, which is fine. Like like we said, a good mix of matches and moments and squashes and interviews, even appearances, like that's all fine. Like that is probably the best type of show. Like the only bringing them up again, the only issue with Revolution is that it was just match, and that just gets hard to watch. Even if they're the best things you've ever seen, after a few hours, you're just kind of burned out.
Right. Yeah, but I think in this case, though, it's, if you're going to sit there and you're going to put on the biggest card, then you want those kind of matches, and you want, I think it got a little ridiculous with a few years ago when it was like an 8-hour card. It's like, that's too much.
No, it's way too much. They're splitting it up fine. And you know what? Like, we're gonna watch the show. It's fine, and it's gonna be a night of 2 nights of somewhat entertaining wrestling. And there'll probably be stuff we like, there'll be stuff we don't like. I mean, it's the WWE story through and through. Like, there's just no way they're gonna wow us. I just don't know how much credibility I give them anymore. Like when they wow me, it's like a surprise and not a byproduct of good decision making. And that's a little myopic because obviously they can do good and bad things. They're not the worst company in the world. They're not truly a joke at putting on an entertaining show. But it really, to me, like the last couple of years of WrestleMania, and then listening to all we've done and all we've read and all we've heard, like it feels to me like WrestleMania is just such a construct, and it's nice to have a mass cultural event to all sort of gather around, and like I said, everyone watches it. My dad's gonna watch it. Like, it'll be nice to all chat about WrestleMania for a weekend, but it's just, it's so much of it is lackluster in the way when we look back at it, it just does not have the same hook that I think we all wished it did.
Yeah, but you always walk in a little hopeful for the reason that it is only once a year, and it is a big build, and it is, more times than not, they put on a good show, and they know that they probably should. So,
and Austin Theory is going to be there, and your boy Pat McAfee. So we'll
bring
see.
It on.
Maybe that'll be fun. Well, WrestleMania is coming up, everyone. Thank you all for listening. You should go watch it, I guess. If you listen to the show, I imagine you're going to watch WrestleMania. So what we said here will probably not sway you in any way. So, of course, we hope you have a wonderful time. Gather with friends and family and enjoy. If you want to hear more of us talk about WrestleMania, we have the Mania of WrestleMania. One of our weirdly most popular episodes ever is in our archives for some SEO reasons we can't quite figure out. Maybe because WrestleMania is in the title. But there's also many, many, many other episodes. All of them are available at awesometruth.libsyn.com. If you want to hear new episodes as they come out, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are delivered. And, of course, you can follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at AwesomeTruthPod. Walt, enjoy WrestleMania. I hope it's not bad. I hope it's kind of good. I mean, let's set the bar low, and if it clears it, then that's a treat, right?
I think that's what we've been doing for 40 minutes, is setting a low bar, hoping to succeed.
That might have been the back reason to do this episode is let's talk about how bad it's going to be, so when it's fine, we'll all be like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we go. The bar is set. So everyone have a great time. Enjoy your WrestleMania, and thank you all for listening. And remember, the truth will set you free.